halfway through and find out it's not. So thank you. I can see the chat, I think, so hopefully that's working. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, just pop it in there and I'll get to it when I can. Otherwise, I'll get to it at the end. If I don't, I apologize in advance. But my name is Maddie Cash. I'm an attorney with Matt, and we do Township Tuesday every first and third Tuesday of the month. These are just to kind of provide you with updates or questions that we've been getting a lot lately, run-throughs of law that kind of is frequently asked of our office, things like that. So if you ever have an idea for Township Tuesday or you want to brush up on a certain area and you want to go through it on a Township Tuesday, please reach out to me and let me know, because I really want to give you guys what you want to see rather than kind of making up topics on my own, guessing what you guys are interested in. So if you have an idea, send it my way. But other than that, keep coming to these. I find them really useful to be able to talk to you guys directly about what concerns you might have with recent legislation or questions or issues within your townships. So spread the word. I really have a goal to increase the attendance to these. So thank you for those of you who do show up and get your friends to do it too. So, all right, I'll get started. I'll stop blabbing. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Matt updates, events within the organization, those kinds of things. And then I'll go over paid leave again. I know I've kind of hit on this a lot, but because there's new reporting requirements coming out in October, or they aren't new, but reporting requirements that are due in October. I want to just go over that again for those of you who need more information or need to know where to go to do that. And then I'm going to go over the LNR that happened on Friday and kind of what resolutions were passed and what the goals are for those in this upcoming legislative session. Now, if you were at LNR, I apologize. This is going to be kind of a review for you, but I want to make sure that everybody knows what the goals are for the next legislative session and where those came from and why. So I just want to make sure that we got that in a Township Tuesday so we could go over that. All right, so updates for Matt. So upcoming, the next upcoming event for us is the annual conference. That's Friday, December 13th, and on Saturday, December 14th. The annual conference will include exhibitors with food and drinks and a bar. So that'll be fun. You'll get to see a lot of companies that regularly work with townships, lawyers that regularly work with townships, discuss that with them. I will be there so you can ask us questions, myself and the other attorneys, and Matt will be there so you can ask them questions. And then we'll have education provided to you from the attorneys in our office as well as outside counsel on specific issues that are pertinent to townships right now, like cannabis legislation and things like that. So it's really useful. There's a lot of information that you can get from it, and you get to network with other township officers and get to know them and maybe how they've dealt with certain issues that a lot of townships deal with and bounce ideas off of each other. So that's always good too. And also the annual conference includes the annual meeting. So that will be included. That's in St. Cloud. So that is the December 13th and 14th. So make sure you register for that if you want to attend that. All right, and then paid leave. So paid leave, if you don't recall or haven't heard of it yet, is Minnesota's law that will guarantee workers in the state the right to paid leave when they can't work due to healthcare or caregiving needs. So it's an act related to state government. It's different from the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, which you might be familiar with, in the sense that paid leave provides that paid time off, and family leave really just provides unpaid leave for eligible employees. So they're very similar. One is a federal law, one is a state law. You can require that your employees take that leave at the same time, so they aren't getting kind of double the amount of time under FMLA and paid leave. But that's kind of the overview of the law. It's administered by DEED, the Department of Employment and Economic Development, and they are the ones with the rulemaking authority under Minnesota Statute 268B. So for paid leave, you have to submit wage detail reports quarterly. How can I locate bylaws for our township related to providing tax exempt status from FEMA purposes? I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'm not familiar with how you would access those. I'd have to look into that. Sorry, Cheryl. I'm not sure. I'd have to take a look at that separately. But if you email that to me, and I'll figure that out for you. Sorry about that. Okay, so continuing on, the first wage detail reports will be due October 31st of this year, and those are based on wages between July and September for your employees. So you'll need to report those wages to DEED. They created a FAQ page. I don't know if you're familiar with the Earn Sick and Safe Time FAQ page, but they created a similar page for this program, and it has a lot of helpful information. They're using the existing unemployment insurance benefits program to collect these wage detail reports. So if you are covered by the UI program, then you can just submit a single wage detail report for both. But if you are not currently covered by the unemployment insurance program, you'll need to set up a paid leave only account. And that account is available on the unemployment insurance website. So the FAQ is also on the unemployment insurance or on DEED's website. I'm sorry. So if you go to the Department of Employment and Economic Development, they will have an FAQ page for paid leave, and it has a lot of really good information on it. But if you want to set up your paid leave only account, that's on the unemployment insurance website online. So I try to navigate it. It is rather confusing website, the unemployment insurance, and I apologize for that. I have no control over that. That's just, bureaucracy at its finest. But you do need to provide that information by October 31st. And it's just first name, last name, social security number, wages paid, and hours worked for your employees. It's the identical information that they use for unemployment insurance. So if you're already doing that, same information, you don't even have to worry about it. All right, so L&R. L&R happened last Friday, and that's kind of Matt's Legislative and Research Committee, where they develop, review, and recommend legislative action on behalf of townships. Now, Town of Worry had a question in the chat. It says, you said it's the same as unemployment insurance report, so do we have to submit it twice? No. So if you're already submitting your unemployment insurance, it's automatically the same report. If you don't already do an unemployment insurance report, then you have to make a separate report that would say paid leave only. So it's really easy if you already submit your unemployment insurance, because you don't have to do anything in addition to that. Okay, L&R. So the Matt Legislative Research Committee, they develop and recommend and review legislative action on behalf of townships. So it's kind of our blueprint as lobbyists to be able to go to the legislature and let them know what you guys want. So it's a chance for all of you to kind of vote on what that looks like and what our kind of quick points are when we talk to these legislators, because we don't get a ton of time with them. So unfortunately, we can't cover every topic in which we are underserved, which is many. So these are the really important ones. You guys voted on these, and I just want to go over what those look like for this year, so you're all aware. 39 people attended the L&R this year. 4 resolutions were proposed, 1 was denied, and then 3 were voted through. 3 passed. And then 1 that is tentative. So it was brought late. There's not enough information. So they're going to discuss it again at the annual meeting. All right. So this is what the L&R looked like. This is just a picture of everyone who attended. Maybe you see the back of your head in this picture. That's great. But if not, this is what kind of it looks like. Graham is up there chatting in the front with everybody. And then everyone's listening attentively, hopefully, and figuring out what they would like to vote on. So that's kind of what it looks like. The first resolution that passed was from Wilma Township in Pine County, and it had to do with cell phone coverage. So the resolution advocated for universal cell phone coverage in underserved townships. Bad cell phone coverage can be a serious issue and range from just not having access to websites that require cell phone interaction or life-threatening emergency services, right? If somebody can't get a hold of someone via lack of cell phone service. So currently there's no existing cellular or wireless service mandate in the state, in state statute. There are federal laws. The Communications Act of 1934 has been interpreted as mandating universal telecommunications for Americans. That act, and then the Telecommunications Act of 1996 adopted criteria to guide that policy. That act led to the creation of the Universal Service Administrative Company, or USAC, which is a corporation, a nonprofit corporation designed to administer the FCC, the service funds by the FCC. So they administer programs designed to expand communication coverage more broadly. Currently, all of that wireless coverage is tracked by the FCC, and Minnesota is kind of substantially better than some of our sister states. However, there are large dead areas and areas that are underserved or unserved completely. So that's something that we hope to change in the next legislative session, or at least improve. The effects of this proposed change, so there's no specific policy change proposed. They aren't specifically asking for this statute to be changed in this way, but there are several potential options to improve cell phone coverage for townships, which range from adding a cellular voice mandate to Minnesota's Office of Broadband Development coverage mandate, or the creation of a equivalent separate office for cellular coverage. So those are kind of the options that we're tampering with right now. Of course, all options have advantages and disadvantages. Access to reliable cellular coverage will expand opportunities, help with emergency responses, expand resources, that kind of thing. But of course, townships might have zoning powers taken away due to cell phone towers, and any substantial new spending always comes with something losing money, right? It has to come from somewhere. So maybe that's from public spending or not spending money on township roads or other transportation things that we might want to spend money on there. So we're very aware of that. We're cognizant of it, and we're just going to approach this in a way that hopefully balances those advantages and disadvantages out. All right, the second resolution had to do with tribal land transfers, and maybe some of you up in the Northwest are more familiar with these issues, but this resolution was proposed to just monitor any proposals within the legislative session to transfer public lands and lobby as necessary to ensure that townships are not deprived of their tax revenue due to these transfers. We want to prevent townships from losing access to lakes and becoming landlocked, or other potentially adverse effects like loss of tax revenue or things along those lines. In the last legislative session, this came about just because in the last legislative session, there were bills introduced that would potentially transfer various lands to tribal nations. One example is Senate File 3480, which would have required the commissioner of the DNR to convey for no consideration all state-owned land within the boundaries of White Earth State Forest to White Earth Band of Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, with some exceptions to that. And then also there was a separate file, House File 4780, which would have required kind of a similar interaction for the DNR to convey to the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians for no consideration all state-owned land and real property that the commissioner administers within 1 mile of the lakeshore of the portion of Upper Red Lake that has state ownership. So 1 mile around that Upper Red Lake. Neither one of those passed in the last legislative session, but it certainly garnered a lot of attention. So currently, all of the examples that we have are of state-owned land, not of township land, but it became a concern of townships within those areas, certainly, and throughout the state. So there's no specific policy change proposed for these. There's no change in statute language, but it's just to keep an eye on and prevent any adverse impacts resulting from these land transfers in the next legislative session, if they are to arise. Again. All right. The third resolution had to do with EMS services, and that's from Corliss Township in Otter Tail County. So we heard a lot about EMS services in the last legislative session. And this is just to, again, support the increase in funding for these rural emergency medical services that so desperately need it. Specifically, MAT should transport treatment in place programs, or MAT should support treatment in place programs, and potentially designate EMS as an essential service or other equivalent opportunities for funding of increased EMS services. In the last legislative session, they did provide that $30 million of funding, but it's nowhere near enough. So it's just the continued effort to try to seek access to EMS services for rural areas in Minnesota that's experiencing a critical funding downfall right now. So as we all know, I mean, rural EMS services have to deal with large geographic coverage, lower population densities, and limited financial resources. So relying on local taxes and state grants just isn't enough, and it's proven to be not enough. They also have difficulty retaining qualified personnel and maintaining enough EMS service providers to actually carry out these necessary treatments. Under current law, Minnesota statute permits towns to levy a tax for ambulance services, and townships can make grants to EMS services. So there's 2 statutes that allow that. They're not effective, obviously, because we're struggling with this to be underfunded right now. So we're looking at other options. Now, Matt located 15 states that have designated EMS as an essential service. Minnesota has not done that. It's common amongst those states where, for example, Connecticut states in their statutes that each municipality shall establish a local emergency medical service plan. That's great, and these mechanisms could potentially be paired with increased funding, but the problem with that is they're not always paired with increased funding. So it can be difficult to implement a mandate, and then that kind of backfires, and the township taxpayers end up paying for that because it's now mandated. So treatment in place is another potential avenue that we're looking at for reform. ARPA money question. We have to spend it by the end of the year. Okay, so there's a question in the chat. I'm going to take a quick diversion from Town of Warri. ARPA money we have to spend it by the end of the year. We had it earmarked for broadband, but I'm learning that our project might not be done this year. So can we change what we had it earmarked for? So in terms of ARPA money, you do have to designate it by the end of this year, but you have to spend it by the end of 2024. So if you still want to spend it on that broadband issue, you can just pass a resolution stating that that's the plan, but it has to be spent by the end of 2026. So you have kind of 2 years from the end of the designation to actually spend the money. So it's up to you on whether you want to change that. Okay. So in terms of EMS services, treatment in place is another avenue that we're looking at so that we don't have to mandate these EMS services and potentially have that backfire and be responsible for that financially. But in the last legislative session, there was a House file that aimed to amend Title 11 of the Social Security Act to require the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation to test emergency medical services, these treatment in place programs under the Medicare program. It would basically amend U.S. code to include an emergency medical service treatment in place model, creating a model by which EMS providers can be compensated if they treat in place, which is not currently the situation. They have to transfer them to a hospital in order to get compensated. And actually, Graham and Jeff are in DC right now kind of discussing this very issue. So again, there's no proposed statutory language change. It's just potential options that we're looking at. More funding to EMS would be great, right? Another Band-Aid to kind of help us along until we get a more permanent response, or amending that federal law to include that treatment in place, which would really help providers to be able to bill Medicare for those treatment in place programs. Obviously, EMS services are a lifesaver to our residents and to our citizens, so they're necessary and really important. But the designation of EMS as an essential service could potentially backfire, and any new spending always comes from somewhere, right? So there's only so much money to go around. So if we're spending money on this, that could mean losing money in terms of our roads or other important money spending ventures that we'd be interested in. And then finally, there was a tentative resolution regarding USPS timely rural mail delivery. So the proposed resolution, the goal of this proposed resolution was to address the causes and barriers to timely and reliable mail service delivery from the USPS. Current policies of the Postmaster General and legislation hinder the efficient use of these USPS services and the revenue that the USPS receives. Apparently, there's a pre-funded retirement plan that's not applicable to other pensions, and may just be affecting the USPS services in a way that was not anticipated. So it's ending up in a scheme that is basically failing rural residents. So rural residents are not receiving mail as quickly as they were, and not being able to send out mail as quickly as they were. Townships, obviously, that can have a massive impact on them. They will have not only unreliable delivery and pickup, but their clerks and treasurers have to receive bills on a timely manner in order to present them to the board for payment. And then there's delays once they pay those bills and send out the checks that need to be received by the claimant of whoever is sending these bills. So timeliness is really important because, there could be risk to non-compliance without these timeliness requirements. And then vendors could also charge late fees. So it's something that we want to look into and get more information on. This was a later a resolution that was introduced later. So it was kind of up for final discussion and consideration at the annual meeting in December, where we will have more relevant information that's provided to the MAP board from legal, myself and Graham and Steve. So this was more of a tentative resolution. It has not passed or failed. It's just on the table currently right now. So that's all I had for L&R and for today. Again, my name is Maddie. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, or Cheryl, if you want to send me that question, I can look into it further for you outside of this. Please do so. Otherwise, if you have ideas for Township Tuesday, if you want to hear something on a specific topic, or you want to brush up on information that we've even already shared, please do so, so we can do that for you. Oh, elections question, Chris Weber. Regarding changeover in clerk position, I chose not to rerun for office, and there will be a newly elected clerk. Newly elected officials take office first Monday in January, then maintain that office until the new clerk is sworn in and the oath is filed with the clerk on Monday, January 6th. I swear the new clerk in, and then the office is then turned over to the new clerk. I could also swear in any other elected officials prior to swearing in the new clerk. Yes, so until that new clerk is sworn in, you maintain that office. Yep. Does that answer your question? Oh, my lights turned off in here. Turn back on. Chris, did that? Okay, good. All right. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Send me your questions if you have them. Otherwise, enjoy your time, enjoy your day, and I will see you in a couple of Tuesdays. So, I'll stop sharing my screen. There. All right. Bye, y'all.